This is Guitar Chord Drills. One page, little torture chamber. Harmonizing the C major scale. The second section is harmonizing altered scales. So, I'm just gonna, this is a quick audio guide to that page. And first of all, you see that we have thirds, sixths, tenths, and 13s played horizontally on each string set. So I do have a YouTube playlist where I go through all of that, and that might be kind of dull. So anyway, you know what third sounds like. And sixths, what does that sound like? So I'm assuming you understand theory and that you're at least an intermediate guitarist, so I won't explain anything. So just to know what sixth sounds like. And you do that on each string set. And then tenths, what do they sound like? So just think of it as a third, but an octave higher. So like here's G and B. And then we have 13ths. Think of those as sixth. So like here's a G and an E. And play up and down those. And I said, after practicing on the fretboard, practice them mentally away from the guitar. So a big point of this is to memorize the fretboard. And then to have these introduced into your improvising or songwriting. So the next drill is 7th chord arpeggios to the 2-5-1 progression played in each position, 2 octaves. So you have everything here at this first section is just staying in the key of C. Keep it simple. So the 2 chord is the D. So there's the D minor arpeggio, and play around with that. First of all, just go up and down it. Then go to the 5 chord, so that's the G chord, right? Except no, G7. And play around with that, and then you end up on the 1 chord, the C chord, C major 7, and go lower to, like if we're starting on the 5th string, 3rd fret, go backwards too, right, to the lower notes, and then continue on. So then we have the next thing is triad inversions to the 4-7-1 progression. You don't have to do it to that progression, but that makes it a little shorter. If you were to try to get through this whole list, or half of it, each day, that can take up quite a bit of practice time, so makes it a little shorter. Play in 3 positions on each string set, and then I modified it a little more, explained it more. Play the triad up each string set for each chord, 1 position at a time. So what is that supposed to mean? Triad inversions. So we want to start with the 4 chord, and we're going to play it, in 3 positions. So how about if we start that in the 10th position? So you've got your, and these also are 7th chords. So you got your F major 7, F, A, C, E, F, and A, C, E, F. So that's the 1 chord, and it was 2 octave scale. And then you do the same thing for the, the 5 chord and the 1 chord. But then we're going to move it down a position. So now let's start down where we're in the 5th position. So we're going to start on the C note, of the F chord. So we got C, E, F, A, C, E, F, A, C. And play it up and down there, and then do it also for the 7 chord and the 1 chord. Okay, now then let's bring it down to the 2nd position. So now the note we're going to start on will be the A note, and that's the 3rd of the F, right? So again, we're starting on the 4 chord. So you'd have F, C, E, F, A, C, E, F, A. Play up and down, and then do the same thing again for the 7 chord and the 1 chord. So let's move on to the next exercise then, stacked fourths. So play up the neck horizontally on the top 4 strings, So that's where it sounds nice. It's not muddy. So we're just sticking with the top 4 notes. So for example, the fbea, fbea. So those are stacked fourths, right? And then so it just gives you a little idea what it sounds like. So those are stacked fourths. So the next exercise, 7th chords, played horizontally up the neck, but this time we have the 3rd, and then on the next string we don't use it. Then we have the 1st, the root, the next string we don't use it. Then we have the 7th, and then the next string, the 1st string, we don't use it. That's why there's an X there. So for example, if we're starting on a G7 chord, you got the G, X for the 5th string. I'm sorry, if we're doing an E minor chord. We've got the 3rd of the E minor, so that's the G, the X, the 1, the root, the E note on string 4, the X on string 3, and then the 7, the D note on string 2, and then we're not using string 1. So the root is on string 4, so there's an E minor, and then F major, G7, C major, A minor. So you got the A minor, B minor, and the C. It's got the major 7, dominant 7. So that's what that sounds like. And then you're going to do the same thing for, 3 more things. So like for example, the next one on string 6, it's got an X there, so you don't play anything there. And so you're going to need to use your right hand fingers. You probably don't want to use a pick here. And so this time the root is in the string 3, so that's the A note. And then it's 7th, that's string 1, so that'd be a G. Notice on string 5 it's the 3rd, the C note. So there's your A minor. So A minor 7, B minor 7, C major 7. And do the same thing for the next 3. Okay, the next exercise, triads, up each 3rd, but move only 1 note. So it's simpler for the explanation underneath that says, from positions 14 down to position 5 on each string set. So for example, I have right there, we have the, the C chord. So C, E, G. And then, so now you have to go to the 3rd, C, D, E. So that's going to be an E minor. You got to play an E minor now, but you can only move 1 finger. What are you going to move? Well, you got to move that C note on string 6, right? Move that down to a B note. Okay, now what's up from E minor then? E, F, G. Oh, it'd be a G chord. What finger am I going to have to move? Oh, I have to move the note on the E note on string 5. I got to move that down to a D, right? So then I got my G chord. I've got the B, D, G. And you can make it sound a little bit musical by, playing. Just get that straight. And then think of the next chord and start on its root. So here's the C, E, G. And then E, G, B, E, G, B. And then what's the next chord? Oh, it's got to be a D chord. Move it to that. And then... So now you're playing the triad of the G chord starting and know what you're doing. But anyway, if you want an audio introduction, here you are. So now the whole next half is harmonizing altered scales. So learn the less common chords by seeing their relation to familiar chords. So that's what this next exercise is about, where you have a C, and then a C major 7, and then a C dominant 7. And so you notice we're just taking our tonic to major 7 to minor 7, going down chromatically. Okay, then make it a C minor 7. Okay, and then, then I recommend going to the C minor 7 flat 5. We flatted the 5, right? Okay, then C diminished. And then you got a C minor with the major 7. And then, now that's probably sounds kind of uncommon to our ear, doesn't it? And then go into a C major 7 with a sharp 5. So that sounds not so much what we're used to. Why is that? Well, because we're harmonizing altered scales. So above, that's very familiar to our ear. You got the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, right? So C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step, E to F is a half step, and so on. We're familiar with that. But on this one, what if we think of these scales as major scales but altered? It makes it a lot simpler than trying to memorize some new formula like a whole, whole, half thing. So just think of a major scale, but what if you sharp all the fives? So again, we want to stick with the key of C for all this. So the fifth is the G, right? So every time you come to a G note, you sharp it. So harmonize the G scale. Well, let's see now. We had, in the C scale, we had C, E, G, B major 7, then the B natural note. So we had C, E, G, B. Oh, but now what if we're going to harmonize this altered scale where every time we get to that G note, we sharp it? All the fifths are sharped. Okay, then we get the C, E, G sharp, B major 7. And then the D minor 7 stays the same, and the E stays E7. Ooh, normally the third degree, that was an E minor 7, but now we had to sharp that G, so that makes it an E7. And then we go to the F major 7, and then we go to a G sharp, and it's forced to be a diminished chord. And then we go to the A minor with the major 7, and then we go to the B minor 7 flat 5, and finally back to the C major 7 with sharp 5. So I guess all I'm doing is setting you up here. I'm not going to play through all these. Let's see, what did I say here anyway? Play the following harmonized seventh chords in position 3, and then in position 3, but don't use the fourth string. Then position 8, then position 10. So starting on those in those positions. So first you're going to start in the third position, so that's just what we were doing, right? And what else did I say under here? Practice the chords horizontally. So we're playing straight up the neck on one string set at a time, going horizontally, not vertically, staying in one position. Beginning with the C chord in each of the given positions. These are their chord names. So we started in the third position, and we have our let's see, in third position there, yeah, and I spelled it out for you. So it says position 3 by that dot of explanation. So it says X, 1, 5, 7, 3, X. So X, we're not going to use string 6, we're going to use string 5, C note, then we're going to go to the 5th, the G note, then we're going to the 7th, the B note, then we're going to the 3rd, the E note, and then we're not going to play string 1. So again, you probably want to use your fingers on these. So that's the C major 7 chord there that everybody's familiar with. Oh, but we got to sharp that 5. Because for this first exercise, it says sharp all the fifths, right? So I'm thinking in the key of C, and then I'm doing what I have to do to make sure I'm sharpening all the fives. So then again, there's the familiar D minor 7, 5th position, the E7, 5th position, F major 7, and that E7 was 7th position, F major 7, 8th position, G sharp diminished, you probably know. So there my G sharp note is on string 5, fret 11, and then that A minor with a major 7, B minor 7 with flat 5. So I'm just playing straight up it and play straight down it, but then to make it more interesting, do a little now and then, go to the scale. So choose different positions, right? So let's say so all I'm doing is goofing around with the C major scale and those 5 box forms you already know from the caged system, right? And improvise with it a little bit, more melodically. You're not trying to wow anybody with your fast virtuosity for shredding or something. So, but then go back to your chords a little bit, and play a few more notes. And then, you know, go back to the chords a little bit. Goof around with that, play some notes, goof around with that. So each of these scales you find has a very different feel. So you go to the next one, and that says flat your thirds. All the thirds you're going to flat. So if you do that, what does that force you to play with your harmonized scale? Well, the C minor then, it's going to be a minor, not a major for the one chord, because you flatted your third degree of the E. But you still kept your major 7 in there, the B. So you have a C minor with a major 7. And then you got your D minor. Now you had to flat that E, and that's going to make an E flat chord, but then it's going to force it to be a major 7 with a sharp 5. And so on. It'll force the F7, the G7, the A minor 7 flat 5, the B minor 7 flat 5. And the same thing is true for each one of these. Then it says play world or altered scales and arpeggios over the chords above. Make it more interesting. Integrate them with them. Then memorize each harmonized scale progression. So do just practice the scales. And it's easier to do it based on what you already know. You already know the C scale, so in that position 5 there, C, D. So you already know that. But then you're going to think, oh, let's see now, every time I come to the third note, though, I got to flat it. So what's that going to look like? Well, let's see, C, D. And then goof around with it. Sounds minor, doesn't it? So goof around with it, get the feel for it. By the way, of course, just like you learned with this major scale, you've got your 7 modes, right? So you focus on C to C, you're an Ionian. But if you focus on your second degree, the D note, and you're hanging around D as your home base, then you're in the Dorian mode. There's a whole different feel again. So that's enough of a fast introduction here.